So it's 3 o'clock. We are able to initiate this webinar. I would like to welcome all of you to this third webinar organized by Myera Space Network and eApril. Before starting, I would like just to say that it's a pleasure to be here with you. I would like to make some tests about the sound and image. So can you help me with that? Can you check if the sound is okay? If you are seeing the image of the webinar, the slide, the initial slide, please. You can use the chat on the right side of your screen to give me the feedback, please. Everything is okay? So that's nice. I think some people are still arriving to this webinar. I will wait just 1 minute to start the presentation. So just to have the most of people here. Okay, so there is still people coming. So I didn't introduce myself, so I would like to do it now. My name is Paulino Silva. I'm senior lecturer and researcher at Polytechnic of Porto Institute from the School of Accounting and Administration. I will talk about a little bit about that afterwards. So just wait for some people. Everyone is listening to me well, everything. Okay, still people coming. So I will just disconnect my webcam just to give you the focus on the presentation. So I will do that now. I think you can still listen to me. Is that correct? Very well. So welcome all of you. As I said, my name is Paulino Silva, and I will be your host for today's webinar. If everything is okay in terms of sound and image, I just advise you to mute your speakers because probably we can have some feedback. So if you have any question, you can ask testing it on the chat space, which is provided on the right side of the screen. So you can have your message, your question on the right side of the screen at the chat space. So this is, as I said, the third webinar of a series of 5, which is promoted by Myera Association, Space Network, and eApril. The topic for today is literature review. So, first of all, I would like to thank to the organizations that were involved in this webinar organization. Myera, which is the knowledge arena of Myera Association, and a very special thanks to Space Network and eApril that have been very helpful during this webinar series. So who am I? My name is Paulino Silva, as I said. I'm ISCAP Polytechnic of Porto lecturer since 2003. ISCAP is the School of Accounting and Business. I'm also founding member of CEOS Polytechnic of Porto Research Center. At the moment, I'm the president of Myera Association. I have background in management sciences, mainly in management accounting. I'm author of several scientific papers published in indexed international journals and in conference proceedings as well. I've been coordinating several research international projects, and also I'm executive coach, speaker, and trainer. My motto is looking for avenues in management, accounting, and education. The agenda for today will cover mainly three themes. After the introduction, I will talk about some initial topics on literature review. Then I will talk about the structure of a literature review. And finally, just before the conclusion, I will present some software options to help us to make a better and more efficient literature review. The aim of literature review is to explore and discuss published material about the topic and research questions of the proposed work, with the aim of demonstrating the understanding and awareness of the existing research, and also the adequacy of the proposed work within the context of the existing research. According to McDade 1999, there are other designations for literature review. There are here some examples: review of relevant literature, review of relevant research, review of related literature, review of background literature. So, what can we expect from literature review? We can expect common issues, themes, or areas of discussion, identification and grouping together similar studies, comparison, contrasting, and evaluating of research, themes, or issues, identification of research, themes, or issues have developed over time, as well as the current state of research. Identification of gaps in research and areas for further study, and also demonstration why a specific dissertation topic and research is relevant to the specific field of study. So, what to avoid when making a literature review? We should avoid listing individual literature without discussing, analyzing, and evaluating each piece of literature. We should avoid discussing each individual piece of literature separately rather than in context. It's important that we draw together literature based on common themes, issues, and/or type of study. We should avoid also describing what is being said in the literature rather than analyzing and evaluating. We should apply and demonstrate critical analysis and evaluation throughout our literature review. We should avoid also not linking the literature to our own dissertation topic and research questions. The literature selected must be relevant to our dissertation topic and be analyzed and evaluated in the context of our specific research area. And finally, we should avoid not linking our literature review to the findings of our own research in the discussion section. So, literature review can be done as a part of thesis or dissertation, or even as a part of an article or paper. Nevertheless, there are research papers that are written with the purpose of reviewing the literature. This is an example. The title, An Integrative Literature Review of Motivational Interviewing and Coactive Life Coaching as Potential Interventions for Positive Behavior Change in Adolescents, gives us a very clear message about what the authors intend to do. We can have several different sources for literature review. As you can see in this slide, the most referred are books, articles and papers, published theses and dissertations, and conference proceedings. However, a newspaper, a magazine, or even a financial report can also be important complementary sources. So, sources of information may be categorized as primary, secondary, or tertiary, depending on their relationship to the events they describe. The characteristics of primary, secondary, and tertiary sources will differ between different academic disciplines, notably between the sciences and the humanities. Primary sources are original materials or content from the time period involved, or original research reported for the first time by those who directly participated in, observed, or conducted the research. Sources will be designated as primary sources due to their content regardless of whether they are published or available in their original format. Secondary sources describe, interpret, review, or comment on events or evidence after the fact. This may be information reported in the primary literature or in other secondary sources. Some secondary sources may also be considered tertiary resources, depending on the context. So, tertiary sources present the condensed version of materials compiled from primary and secondary sources. They can be a good place to look up facts or get an easy-to-read overview of a subject, and include guidebooks and encyclopedias. So, according to Mashi et al. 2009, there are two main types of literature review: basic and advanced. Basic literature review means that the researcher summarizes, evaluates the existing knowledge about a specific topic. It's called state of the art. Advanced literature review means that the researcher, after evaluation of the state of the existing knowledge, proposes a thesis for future research. It's worth saying that advanced literature review is an essential step to discover what we still do not know about a specific topic. A literature review should be structured like any other essay. It should have an introduction, a middle or main body, and a conclusion. The middle or main body is important for the discussion. The conclusion should summarize the key points of the discussion. What should we include in the introduction? Firstly, a definition of our topic and an appropriate context for reviewing the literature. This means that we should outline the wider context of our literature review. Where and how does our dissertation topic fit into the wider subject area? We also need to establish the reasons. This is our point of view for reviewing the literature. This means that we should outline how and why we have selected the literature to be reviewed. And also, we need to explain the sequence. For example, if we are reviewing the literature on management control on not-for-profit organizations, we might say something like, there are a large number of studies of management control in organizations in general. However, since the focus of this research is on management control on not-for-profit organizations, this will not be reviewed in detail and will only be referred to as appropriate. The middle or main body should organize the literature according to common themes. Analyzing and evaluating the themes, issues, and propositions, this means suggestions, conclusions, opinions of authors found in the literature, synthesizing common themes, issues, propositions to enable us to make reasoned conclusions, comparing and contrasting themes, issues, proposition, research outcomes, provide insight into the relation between our chosen topic and the wider subject area. For example, between obesity in children and obesity in general. Move from a wider view of the literature being reviewed to the specific focus of the research. There are some typical ways of organizing the sources into a review. Chronological, by publication, by trend, thematic, and methodological. Let's talk about each of one of these individually. Chronological. In this case, we write about the materials according to when they were published. For instance, first we will talk about the first experience of balanced scorecard implementation in the early 1990s, when we talk about its use in a different sector in the beginning of the 21st century, and so on. But sometimes there is relatively no continuity among subjects here. Thus, the review loses its chronological focus. So, organization by publication. In this case, we need to order our sources by publication chronology, then only if the order demonstrates a more important trend. By trend, a better way to organize the sources chronologically is to examine the sources under another trend, such as the history of balanced scorecard. Then our review would have subsections according to eras within this period. For instance, the review might examine balanced scorecard from 1992 to 1996, then from 1996 to 2000, then from 2000 to 2006, and finally from 2006 until today. Under this method, we would combine the recent studies on balanced scorecard with the initial studies, even though the authors wrote almost 30 years apart. Another organization type is thematic. Thematic reviews of literature are organized around the topic or issue rather than the progression of time. However, progression of time still be an important factor in thematic review. A review organized in this manner would shift between time periods within each section according to the point made. Methodological. The methodological approach differs from the others in that the focusing factor usually does not have to do with the content of the material. Instead, it focuses on the methods of the researcher or writer. A methodological scope will influence either the types of documents in the review or the way in which these documents are discussed. So, once we have decided on the organizational method for the body of the review, the sections we need to include in the paper should be easy to figure out. They should arise out of your organizational strategy. In other words, a chronological review should have subsections for each vital time period. A thematic review would have subtopics based upon factors that relate to the theme or issue. The conclusion of literature review needs to demonstrate that we met the aims outlined in our introduction. It's also important to summarize and synthesize the main issues and themes related to our topic area. This means that we should evaluate the current state of the literature reviewed and identify significant flaws or gaps in existing knowledge. Another important point of the conclusion is to suggest areas for further study and also explain the implications and significance of the identified themes for our dissertation topic and field of study. And finally, identify how and why our research will aim to address the gaps identified. We can also provide a rationale for our dissertation topic choice. So we need to use the evidence. So to the writing process, the first issue is to use evidence. A literature review, just like any other academic research paper, our interpretation of the available sources must be backed up with evidence to show that what we are saying is valid. We need to be selective. We should select only the most important points in each source to highlight in the review. The type of information we choose to mention should relate directly to the review's focus, whether it is thematic, methodological, or chronological. We need to be careful when to use quotes, not too much. Summarize and synthesize. We need to summarize and synthesize our sources within each paragraph as well as throughout the review. Keep our own voice. Even if the literature review presents others' ideas, our voice should remain front and center. We need to use caution when paraphrasing. When we are paraphrasing a source that is not our own, we need to be sure to represent the author's information or opinions accurately and in our own words. Revise, revise, revise. After the first draft is ready, now we need to revise. It's a good idea to spend a lot of time revising because our main objective is to present the material, not the argument. So this is an example of a detailed literature review chapter within an essay. We can structure and number the sections and the subsections to be more clear in our written communication. As we can see, there is an introduction represented by 2.1, the introduction of literature review, of course. There is a main body represented by 2.3, 2.4, and 2.5. And finally, there is a conclusion represented by 2.6. It's also possible to see that 2.2, study skills in higher education, is divided into different subsections. So now let's move to another topic, softwares. There are several different softwares that help us to build our own references database, which is very useful for writing the literature review. The most usual are EndNote, Mendeley, and Zotero. Probably you have already seen these softwares. EndNote is a very known software, but we need to pay for it. Mendeley is also very known software. The advantage is that it is free. And finally, Zotero, which is also very popular among higher education institutions, is also free. I will present it very shortly, some characteristics of this software, as it is the one that I use at the moment. So this is an example of the information we find when we open the software. Zooming in, we can see better. For example, if we select the database of references called Colonial Medicine, on the left side, we can see on the middle side all the articles, papers, books, and other references in detail, the title of the reference, the first author, and the year of publication. And if we select the article, Circulation of Medicine in the Early Modern Atlantic World, we can see all the details of this article on the right column. In this case, we can also see that the full text in PDF is available just under the title of the article, as you can see here. So to insert a reference manually with Zotero, we should select the green plus and then choose from the most usual. If it is a conference paper, a newspaper article, an academic journal paper, a dissertation, or a book. So after that, we need to fill in all the information about the specific reference, such as the title of the paper, the authors, the year of publication, the abstract, the journal, the editor, the publisher, and so on. Of course, there are some fields that we don't need to fill in to have the complete information in our references. But it's also possible to introduce a reference automatically using one of the following options in Zotero: ISBN, DOI, PMID, or Archive ID. Normally, we use ISBN and DOI options, and automatically, in this case, all the information can be filled in. So all the information about the article or about the book is inserted. Everything available from the article or book that we import from other place is filled in. What we don't need to do anything else. There is a possibility to install the Zotero connector to our browser. So with this connector, it is even easier to add a reference to our Zotero database. So we search for a specific paper on the internet. After finding the paper we want, we only need to click on this icon that you can see in this slide. Let's see it on the next slide. So as you can see here, the icon is available on the right top of the page. So clicking on it, automatically the paper goes to your own Zotero database. So with Zotero, it's also very easy to change the citation style. As you probably have experienced already, there are some journals that use APA, American Psychological Association style. Others use IEEE, Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. So the changing process from one to another is very easy with Zotero. So we don't need to waste a lot of time to do it manually. And you can imagine which is doing that. We only need to select the style we want, and our text file will automatically be updated according to the style selected. So here you can find the references for our webinar. In Portuguese language, I would like to suggest an excellent book. It's not only about literature review, but about other research topics. It's an excellent option for the all researchers, young and senior ones. It's an excellent option for everybody, I must say. So the title is Mestrados and Doutoramentos, and the authors are Professors Ana Maria Ramalho Correia and Anabela Mesquita, which is my colleague that addressed the two previous webinars. You should remember her. Just to finish, I would like to say that the next webinar will be about qualitative research methods. It will be on 27 May 2019 at the same time at 15 GMT hour, and I will address also the next webinar. So thank you very much for your attention. And now I'm open to your questions.